2 kilometers outside the city when the sirens started. My son asked if it was another drill. I lied. You don't tell a 6-year-old this one's real. You just say, grab your sister, we're going. We didn't pack, there wasn't time. I grabbed what I could, half a data shard, 1 water cell, a coat that didn't even fit right. And we ran. The air was already shaking when we cleared the ridge. First the drones, then the light, then the sound. You never forget the sound. It doesn't boom, it tears like a seam being ripped out of the world. I held 1 kid in each arm, lungs burning, dirt in my teeth. My wife was ahead of me, smarter, faster, shouting directions over the howl of the wind. Her voice, the only thing that still made sense. Then the sky lit. The city behind us, gone, just like that white-hot lattice strikes lances of plasma through the skyline. Buildings didn't crumble, they disappeared, and we ran harder. The smoke helped in a way. It kept the drones from seeing us, or maybe they just didn't care enough to aim this far out. I don't remember how long we ran. I don't remember the sound of my own breath, just the heat, the silence in my daughter's throat, the way my son kept whispering, is this where we die? Then we heard it low, broken, wrong, not thunder, not bombs, engines. A ship came down through the smoke, not a military build, scrap welded, old core, no markings. It landed hard, ramp already lowering before the struts even locked. A figure in the haze, leather coat, half armored, face worn to the bone, voice like gravel cracked open. Get in, that was it. No explanation, no badge, no rank, just get in. Tilted, screaming metal all around us. We were airborne in seconds. Chaff rounds behind us, a streak of lasers over the port wing. The kids were screaming. My wife was bleeding, not bad forehead, but the red made it feel worse. And me, I just held on to the wall and waited for death to catch up. It didn't. The ship took a hit, mined a whole breach in an empty corridor. We burned half the fuel, a reserve in 1 jump, but we made it out. Silence then, just quiet hums and failing fans, and the sound of my daughter crying in my coat. The pilot didn't turn to look at us, just kept 1 hand on the throttle, eyes on the drift horizon. Then he said it like it was a joke, like he'd said it before. I'm sorry, you're one of us now. I didn't know what that meant, not then, but I know now. It means you survived something you weren't supposed to. It means you didn't wait for permission. It means someone broke a rule to save you. And it means now you'll break your own to save someone else. Because he didn't have to stop, he didn't have to see us, he didn't have to say get in, but he did. And now when I hear sirens, I don't run. I look for the smoke. I listen for the engine with the wrong pitch. I listen for the scream that isn't fear, it's arrival. And if I ever hear it again, I'll make room, I'll open the hatch, and I'll say the only words that matter anymore. Get just 2 months old. The oldest was blind, ran a community kitchen out of a converted drop pod. She said, if you can get us starch, I can make bread again.
Pull the manifest 3 hours later. Class B convoy armed but lightly. Route ran straight from a manufacturing sector to a loyalist stronghold. Contents processed protein blocks, rehydration tablets, basic antibiotics, thermal blankets. All earmarked for an outpost that didn't need it, that would stockpile it, sit on it. Wait for someone desperate enough to trade loyalty for food. We could wait for clearance, someone said. No one answered. The pirate, he just looked over the console, nodded once and said, shift change, that's our window. We hit him in orbit, not a firefight, not even a confrontation, just precision. We lured their escort drones with a flare signal, spoofed the false coordinates, disabled their comms with a targeted burst. Old code buried in the OS. One of our techs used to write firmware for those systems. Funny how that works. They didn't even see us coming. By the time they knew something was wrong, their engines were cold and we were inside their hole. I was on the boarding crew, not to fight, just to walk through their corridors and find the good stuff. The crew was scared, younger than me, most of them raised on regulations, told that pirates wore masks and laughed while they burned your friends alive. We didn't wear masks, we wore intent. We told them to step aside. No one moved, no one resisted. One girl, couldn't have been more than 20, looked me in the eye and asked, are you gonna take everything? And I said, no, just what you were never gonna deliver. It took 11 minutes to offload the cargo. We left the crew unharmed, we didn't even take the rations. We left them a spare comm unit and a full medical pack in case someone got stupid and tried to play hero too late. Then we vanished, no trace, no signature, just empty air where we've been. We fed 3 cities with what we took, got the kitchen run again. Saw that old woman cry when she cracked open the first ration box and said this was supposed to feed soldiers. My daughter helped stack protein bricks in the community center. My son handed out blankets to people who hadn't slept warm in weeks. And I stood in the middle of it, listening to laughter, real honest, exhausted laughter, and realized something. We didn't steal, we just rerouted, we just corrected a mistake that was about to become a statistic. And the people we took from, they report us, of course, call us thieves, list us in red on fleet servers and transmission lists. But they'll still be alive, they still get to go home, they still get to claim victimhood in a system that never once asked who the real victims are. They'll keep calling us pirates, they don't know what that word means anymore. It's not murder, it's not power, it's not chaos. We interrupted their war machine for 11 minutes, just long enough to let someone else live a little longer. That's the only currency we care about now, time bought with intention. We got eyes on another convoy already, heavier escort, bigger payout. The pirates already marking up a map, plotting a hole in information. Someone asked, isn't this just war now? He said, only if you believe they're the only ones allowed to fight. We'll hit them at shift change, no casualties, no speeches, just cargo holds full and people fed. They'll call it piracy, fine, let them. After the rescue, after the orbit burn and the near miss with those interdicted drones, I thought we'd be dropped somewhere quiet, safe. Maybe a refugee station with clean cots and blank stares. But the pirate didn't slow down, didn't land, didn't even ask who we were or where we wanted to go. He just kept flying. And somewhere between the 30 vac zone and the 8 free entry, I realized we were staying. Not because we asked to, not because we were useful, just because there was nowhere else to go. Started by cleaning up. The bay gets messy after a rescue. Blood suit, shattered gear, people drop things in a panic. So never come back to pick them up. I swept white panels, changed filters, fixed a loose latch on the boarding ramp. No one told me to, I just couldn't sit still anymore. Next run I stayed on board, engine room. An old engineer named Quell saw me carrying a thermal unit across the floor and asked if I knew what I was doing. I said no, but I can learn. She didn't smile, she just handed me a ratchet and said don't cross the yellow line unless you wanna die. I didn't cross it, or die. I watched this and started recognizing the cough of an engine just before it slipped out of phase. Turns out survival teaches you more than fear. It teaches you attention. The pirate never asked why I stayed. He saw me in the lower decks, running diagnostics on a relay cluster, and just nodded once. That was his way of saying you're in. Not officially, there's no roster, no rank, but from that moment on I wasn't just surviving, I was contributing. The first time I joined a live run, it wasn't planned. We lost a nav officer mid-orbit, concussion from a hull breach. The ship was low on crew when we had a corridor evac scheduled in 6 minutes. He looked at me across the bridge and said second seat. I didn't hesitate, strapped in ran comms, watched the scopes for a signal, bouncing thermal flare. That run saved 23 people. I only remember one face, a girl maybe 12 covered in dust and burn marks, screaming for someone named Ari. She screamed until we lifted off, then she just stared at me and whispered I didn't think anyone was coming. I told her I didn't think anyone would come for us either, but someone did. That's when they gave me the mic. Not officially, but every run needs a voice. Not commands, not orders, just a voice that knows what it's like to be on the other side of the smoke. So now when the hatch opens and people hesitate, frozen in fear, I patch through. I know you're scared, I was there. Just run, I'll catch you, I promise. They run, I catch them. Every time I sit second seat now, I whisper one name to myself. The pirate. He saved us without knowing who we were, without asking if we were worth it. He got us out, now I get them out. That's how this works. Not loyalty, not orders, just debt repaid for it. I'm not a soldier, I never wore armor, I've never held a blaster, but I pulled 36 people out of burning streets. I've piloted under drone fire, I've dropped medical crates to people who were told to die quietly. And every time I lift off with a bay full of lives no one else wanted to save, I hear the old words again. Get in, I did, and I stayed. And now I say it too, because that's how revolutions begin. Not with a banner, not with a bullet, with one voice saying I'll catch you. It was called the Vengeance Arc, a class 3 dreadnought, twin turbine core, 3,200 crew when it was full, built for orbital sieges and city splitting barrage, a floating cathedral to obedience. We weren't supposed to be anywhere near it. They rooted it through the outer rim, a low-key pass through en route to the core. Everyone said it was a flex, a show of strength, just in case. They said we didn't care about the ship, we cared about the people inside. The draft had stretched in too many sectors, too few volunteers, so they started pulling from broken colonies, recovery zones, refugee camps, conscripts, children of war drafted to serve the same system that burned their homes. We heard whispers, people locked in bunks, medics threatened for treating non-combatants, pilots punished for hesitating during bombardment runs. The ship wasn't crewed, it was hostage, so we made a choice. We wouldn't sabotage it, wouldn't blow it up, we were going to take it. It started with a breach in a maintenance van, old access codes, a system tech we'd rescued 2 months ago who still remembered how the inside of that class worked.
fed old footage of empty halls. They didn't even know we were inside until the second airlock opened. I remember the silence. No alarms, no shouting. Just 26 of us moving through the belly of a ship that could have wiped out a continent. When we reached Central Ops, the captain was still giving orders. He turned, saw us standing there, and didn't even blink. Just said, "You don't know what you're doing." I said, "I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm giving your crew a choice." He reached for the override, the pirate stunned him with a non-lethal pulse round. We dragged him out of the chair, sat down, brought the main display online. Then we opened comms to the whole ship. I didn't plan to be the voice, but the words came anyway. You don't know me, I was a father, once ran from a city as it burned. Was saved by a man who didn't ask if I was worth it, he just opened the door. This ship is full of people who were told they had no choice, that they had to follow, that they had to serve. That's a lie. You're not weapons, you're not pawns, you're not cogs. You are people and people choose. So here's your choice, stay here, join us. The bridge is open, the ship is yours, not theirs. And then something happened I still don't understand. One by one the station started going dark. Weapons offline, tactical offline, drone control offline. Now disabled, abandoned. They walked away. I've never seen anything like it. By the end of the hour, 2/3 of the ship had folded in. They handed us their clearances, their credentials, their stories. They weren't soldiers anymore, they were free. We renamed it, not for pride, not for rebellion. We called it the thought, because now it had one. It flew under its own will, not on orders, on belief. The next morning we entered home space. Quiet, no escort, no threat signals. We flew the Thor right into the heart of the system that built it. Over the capital, over the factories, over the schools still teaching compliance like it was a moral law. And we broadcasted, not propaganda, not victory, just a single voice. You said I needed orders, you said I couldn't think for myself. This ship thinks for itself now. They couldn't kill us, not without proving we were right. So they scrambled, sent out a dozen contradictory messages. Disavowed the draft, said we were fake, said we were stolen tech, said nothing at all. But the message had already spread, that's all we needed. We're not pirates anymore, we're something else, something harder to name. We're what happens when the machine runs too long on borrowed loyalty and forgets that even cogs remember their names. This ship thinks for itself, so do we, and we're not going back. Between the cracks of the broadcast, behind enemy lines and coordinates in tidy little boxes labeled someone else's problem. We were wrong. War through the pickup, 6 evac shuttles filled, 2 still waiting in the mud when the sky cracked open. Not plasma, not bombardment, a needle drone, slipstream class fast, mean, smart. Some bureaucrat somewhere had decided the fold-in wasn't worth tolerating anymore. We didn't see it coming until it was already in our shadow. 2 seconds, that's how fast it cut the wing. The thought buckled, the whole ship groaned like a living thing with a broken spine. Alarms lit the corridors, people screamed, the bay doors shuttered. And in that chaos, we lost him. His name was John. He was 12 when we pulled him out of the Kesson fires. Back then, he wouldn't speak for weeks, but eventually he found a voice. He'd follow me down to the hangar every morning. I taught him how to check the seal couplings, how to listen for a misfire in the engines, how to stay calm when the walls are shaking. He was the first kid I ever told, we're not just running anymore, we're doing something bigger. He believed me when the drone hit. John was in the starboard service corridor, his usual hiding spot. When alarms flared, he thought it was safe, so did we. Then the hull gave, the beam collapsed, the line snapped, and in an instant he was gone. We sealed the bay, kept the ship flying. For weeks we believed we'd lost him to the black, but the deep keeps its own strange rules. Months later, across 6 systems and a half-dead signal bounce, we caught a carrier tone repeating the same message. I'm here, I'm still here. It was him. Not all of him, maybe. Not the same John that used to dance through maintenance protocols and joke about dying in a glorified tin can, but he wasn't dead. He'd survived the drift, or become part of it. And now he's somewhere between man and myth, riding the edges of the fleet, laughing like the static knows his name. We still holding on to a toolkit like it was the last thing in the world that made sense. There's no silence like the silence after that kind of loss. No alarms, no cries, just the weight of everyone realizing the thing they were fighting finally punched back. We'd always known we could lose people, we just thought it would be out there. Not inside, we buried him in the drift, wrapped his toolkit in cloth, pressurized the outer lock, pushed him into the black. No speeches, no flag, just the hum of the airlock and the pirate's voice saying we carry him with us. And we do. After that, everything changed. The crew moved quiet, a laugh less. No one walked past the starboard corridor without touching the wall. It wasn't superstition, it was a promise. We crossed the line we never meant to, not because we wanted to, but because war never lets anyone stay clean. We started asking questions we didn't have the guts to ask before. How far do we go before we become what we're fighting? How many do we say before we start losing more of our own? What happens when the cost gets higher than what's left of us? No one had answers, not the pirate, not me, not anyone. Not anyone, not anyone, not anyone, not anyone, not anyone, not anyone, not anyone. But when the next distress call came, we still answered it. Because the truth is, loss doesn't end the fight, it just makes it heavier. Every face we lose gets welded into the hull. The ship doesn't fly on thrusters anymore. It flies on the weight of the ones who didn't make it out. Second seat, hand on the comms. I still whisper the words I told him before every run. We'll make it back. It's a lie, but it's a necessary one. John's name is etched in the starboard bulkhead now. Small, quiet, not for show, just for us, because we keep going. Not because we're brave, not because we're winning, but because we own the space between what was lost and what can still be saved. And maybe one day when someone else hears the wrong engine through the smoke, when they step onto the ramp and see our faces, they won't know his name, but they'll be alive because of it. That's the cost, and we carry it, all of it, always. It looked like nothing. Just another orbital facility, cold, clean, silent. No defense grid, no escort fleet, no visible weapons, because they didn't need them. This place was never built for fighting. It was built for numbers. We'd seen the effects on the ground, in the cities, in the fields of ash, and the screams that came before the silence. We'd seen what the bombs did, what the shells carved through, what the contracts enable. Now we were looking at the origin, not the trigger, the ledger, the one from the pirate's log. 16 workers dead in a blast after months of minting munitions like coins for a collapsing economy. We found a receipt still cached in the internal drives, receipts for artillery, for targeting arrays, for children burned in buildings because someone wanted a quarterly spike before the fiscal rollover. I didn't want to believe it, even after everything, the evacuations, the conscripts, the drone that killed John. Some part of me still clung to the idea that the system was just misguided, not cruel, just broken. But these files, they weren't broken. They were meticulous, profit per yield, cost per burn zone, civ casualty ratio adjusted for narrative leverage. They calculated how much they could get away with, how many families could die before public support dipped. Numbers for it, a formula, acceptable loss was literally a cell in a spreadsheet. Someone on the crew, the youngest, probably asked if we were going to destroy it. The pirate just shook his head, no, we're gonna turn it on. We reactivated the comms grid, opened every private line, spliced it to the galactic relay, fed everything into the core archive and unlocked it. Every file, every contract, every shipment, every name, we dumped it all into the deep. No encryption, no edits, just raw history bleeding out of a system that spent decades pretending it was clean. Then we turn on the lights, every screen, every relay, every display terminal. The pirate's voice came through first. This is what war cost, not in blood and balance sheets. This is where your children's futures were sold. This is the room where cities became margins. You wanna kill us, fine, do it, but the world will know why, and they'll know you did it for margin. They try to shut us down. First a signal scrubbed and a gem impulse didn't work. We'd hardwire the feed to every satellite array in the sector. One of our crew, a tech we picked up off a broken frigate a year ago, looked up from a console and said, it's permanent now. We didn't stay long, we knew what was coming. We left the facility intact, left it screaming. Not with alarms, with evidence, with names, with a mirror too big to ignore. And we left a message on the exterior hull just before we jumped. Painted in crude white strokes, barely aligned, written by someone whose hands were still shaking from the files they just saw. We see you, and now so does everyone else. They'll come after us, we know that we're ready. But this time they don't get to call us thieves or traitors or terrorists. Not without answering the question every transmission now carries. Why was this worth hiding? Why was this worth hiding? No more whispers, no more speculation, no more denial. They built a war for profit, and now the whole system knows. We're still flying, still pulling people out, still breaking chains. But now when we show up, people aren't just grateful, they're angry, and anger, when it finally turns into clarity, that's how revolutions survive. They started with a ping, one ship, no signature, drifting outside our come range, running silent. We thought it was a trap, we'd seen the decoy trick before. Crippled hull, wounded signal, bait for an ambush. But then the pirate looked at the scan and said, that's a K-class hauler, civilian retrofit, undermounted thrusters. And then after a long pause, that's one of ours. We opened a line, no password, no clearance code, just a voice, scratchy and warm from long-range static. You showed us the files, we're not staying quiet. Then came another, a long-range freighter with a retrofitted med-bay. 6 months ago, we'd have been running supplies for the system fleet. We're not weapons, not anymore. Fold us in a scout cutter, a refugee shuttle, a science vessel. One by one they peeled away from the machine, from the borders, from the lies, and they came to us. We didn't build a fleet, it assembled itself. People who'd seen too much, people who buried too many, people who couldn't pretend anymore that survival was a political. They flew in silence at first, no colors, no names, just battered hulls held together by intention. We met above a dead moon in free drift, 10 ships, no hierarchy, no chain of command, just a shared channel and one question: what now? The pirate looked at us all, his eyes were tired, his hands shook a little from the last run, but his voice, that never wavered. We move as one. We don't wait for approval, we don't apply for grants, we don't file petitions that go unanswered. We fold in the lost, we fight for the stolen, and we don't ask anymore. And then one by one each ship confirmed, not with protocol, not with salute, just with one word, A. We became something they couldn't define, couldn't target. We weren't a rebellion, we weren't terrorists, we were people who stopped waiting. Every system we entered, we sent the same message: if you're being hunted, run toward us. If you've been silent, speak here. If you've been broken, come as you are. No names needed, no debt, so just get in, we'll catch you. The system called us pirates, said we were rogue, lawless, dangerous. Fine, we are dangerous, dangerous to the lie that obedience is survival, dangerous to the idea that only the uniformed get to decide what peace means. They tried to cut us off, block our signals, blacklist our coordinates, but every time they did, another ship lit up on the edge of the deep. A mining freighter full of volunteers, a diplomatic courier turned into a medevac, a bounty hunter who stopped taking orders and started taking fire for the weak. They can't stop us anymore, not because we're invincible, but because we're not alone. We become something worse than an army. We become a story, and stories spread. I fly second seat on the thought still, but now when I look out the viewport, I don't see black. I see a constellation of refusal, every ship a spark, every crew a chorus, every jump another step away from the gravity of the world we left behind. You wanna know what pirate shit really is? It's people deciding the system doesn't own them anymore. They're saving who they said couldn't be saved, feeding who they said weren't worth feeding, fighting like hell for a tomorrow that doesn't need a flag to be real. It's this, right now, all of us moving as one. We don't ask any move, we just do the right thing. And if that scares the ones in power, good, they should be scared, because we're not just flying, we're catching others as they fall. And this time